today we're talking about emptying the tank. And when people hear that, sometimes they think, oh, he's going to talk about working harder, right? And that's not what this is all about. It's not about working harder. We're all at capacity. Okay. But yes, should we all do more? Yes. But there's a lot of us can't, physically and mentally expound ourselves anymore. But I've learned a couple kind of tips and tricks on how to really make what I'm doing work more for me and work more for my team. Right. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And so there is a PDF. Here's kind of our roadmap today. Is we're going to talk about pit stops. We're going to talk about a mentality I like to call one more lap mentality, and then we're going to end it with some Q&A. All right. So we're going to move a little bit faster because today's, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit more simplistic than the rest of the webinars. And by the way, the PDF for this is in the chat window right here. All right. And I can email these to you also. But that PDF, if you'd like to open it up, if you'd like to save it for later. And again, the only reason I provide these PDFs is because I kind of want you just to be on this with me and enjoy the webinar and not feel like you've got to write all of this down. The majority of what we talk about is going to be right there in that PDF file. Okay. So let's get going. All right. Emptying the tank. Now, Monster Jam is such an interesting career to have because I don't own the truck. I don't have to fix all of the damage. And the first time I ever talked to Monster Jam, that's what my biggest concern was. They said, hey, would you be interested in coming and driving a Monster Jam truck? And I saw it down the road. I'm like, I don't want to just go waste my time, driving something if I don't think that there's an actual chance that I would do this. And so I remember asking them questions like, well, I'm not going to live on the road because I did that in drag racing already. And at that point I had just gotten married and we were expecting our first child. So I didn't want to drive the rig. Right. And they said, no, you would fly in each weekend. And I said, okay, number two, I just want to be a driver, right? I don't want to be a crew guy and a driver. And again, that's what I did in drag racing. I was our clutch specialist. I was ripping clutch discs and elements of the clutch out of a top fuel car after each one of our passes. After I would drive the car, I'd get out, I'd rip my fire suit off, and I'm bringing 1,500 degree clutch discs and rebuilding all of that. And it took me about 75 minutes. So I would rush. I'd thrash through all of that. And about the time we were done, I was putting my fire suit back on, getting back in that top fuel dragster and going to make another pass. And I was doing that over and over and over. Well, when you're 20 years old, you've got that energy, right? When I've talked to Monster Jam, I was 27, 28. I still had plenty of energy, but I realized, I said, I cannot do both, okay? The reason why I'm with Monster Jam now is they said, no, we just want you to come and drive. We've got the crew guys that can come in and fix the truck. And I said, that's awesome. Okay. Because to me, I knew if I could go and just run as hard as I could, that there would always be somebody and crew guys there that can fix what I break. And if Monster Jam were on this call right now, they would tell you I break a lot. Okay. Thankfully, we've got amazing sponsorships and some extra help to get those parts fixed and put back together. But it frees me up to go and run at the level that I run and do the backflips and the huge air that I do, and to risk tearing up the truck and running as hard as I do, because I know that afterwards, I know exactly where the truck's going to go. I know the people that are going to fix the truck. I know how it's going to get back on the track after I tear it up. And so I kind of want to really take that analogy and, of course, apply it to our lives. And it's almost easier whenever we're trying to accomplish something to think about from a sense of leadership and team and culture versus, you guys don't drive a truck every day, but I do want to think about, our capacity being a cup of water. And here's what most of the people do in their careers. Okay. This is when they maybe they just got started, but they're trying to take what's inside of them, right? And this is their effort, okay? And they're slowly kind of going out just like this, and they're pouring themselves out to their team. And if this big bucket is our goal or our project that we're trying to do, and here's your leader, all of a sudden they get to about right here, and they realize that they're starting to get empty, and they start to communicate this as more being burnout. Okay. I'm at capacity. I don't know what to do, but they start pacing themselves, and then they stop putting as much effort as they want to into that goal. Now, all of a sudden they've really only got a couple drops left, and you're wondering, like, why are they not as engaged as they once were? And it's because you cannot pour into people out of an empty cup. And what we've got to do as leaders in our culture, we have got to get better at filling up our people. Okay. We also have to get better at filling up ourselves. And what does that look like? For me, it's reading, right? Have got to get a book in my hand. I'm always pouring into these books that I'm recommending. Podcasts, I've all of a sudden really gotten a lot better with podcasts. And so here I am, whenever I'm the most empty and I feel the most empty, I'm going back to my jug, what I know to be true. And a lot of times it's family for me too. Okay. I can pour myself out all weekend long at Monster Jam and for these fans because I know Monday morning I'm getting back with my family. Right. And I'm filling my cup back up so that whenever I go back out to Monster Jam and I'm pouring into these fans, all of a sudden I've got plenty to pour from. Now, to be fair, though, this is the best model. It's not just pour yourself out, fill yourself back up. Right. And if you're doing that and you're already above the curve with that, the best model is to find the type of situation where it looks just like that. Right. You're constantly pouring out into your team, and you're also having people pour into you. You've got the right mentorship. You've got the right elements. You understand what you need in your team to be able to go and do that. And so I want to challenge each of us, right? Because this is for our teams. And my question is, when was the last time you were really pouring into your leaders and then also making sure that they're filled back up? But also, if you've got someone that's really frustrated and you've got somebody that you feel like, you know what, we made a manager 12 months ago, they don't seem to be enjoying it. It might have been their very first time really pouring into other people, and they might just simply be empty. So you go back to that the Melt the Ice webinar. You go back to some of these conversations that we've had so far. That's why we've kind of had to build to get to this point, because if we're going to run as hard as we're really able to run, we've got to understand how and where we're going to get filled back up. And so I call these pit stops, right? It was funny. I was going to say, where are your pits? Because that's all, race car drivers call it, our pits. And then I thought, man, I don't know. I'm sure everyone's just going to think of armpits, which that might have been a little bit better of an analogy. I don't know. Maybe it'd be stickier, but I also didn't want to sit here and talk about armpits the whole time. But where is your pit stop? Are you somebody that's a pit stop for other people? Are you somebody that understands where your pit stop is? Is it music? Right? Sometimes it's music. Sometimes, like I said before, it's podcasts. Are you an introvert? Right? Do you need time away from people? Do you need seclusion? Does your manager need seclusion? Okay. Are you an extrovert? Do you need people? Sometimes people need a group of individuals to get back around, and it fills them back up just having some of that conversation. Well, here's a little bit about myself personally. I've realized my best pit stop is actually getting results. So I will stop if I'm empty and I'm frustrated and I can feel my anxiety all raising up like that. Sometimes I will go outside and I will sweep out my garage. If nothing else, because I can look and see the difference that I just made outside in the junk that was in the garage, and I sweep it all out and it looks better. And my brain is calculating that I'm able to get results. And for whatever reason, it fills me back up. And then I jump back in. I'm putting another keynote together, or maybe I'm working with another brand and I'm doing some video. I did a huge Great Clips video yesterday, and I had about 10 hours into editing this piece for Great Clips to run on some sponsored ads in partnership with Monster Jam. And it took forever, right? And so I'm frustrated for those 10 hours of pouring into that. And I'm not a professional video editor. I'm constantly pouring myself out with that. Afterwards, I saw the finished product that filled my cup back up. And then I went and I hugged my kids and I sat there for 30 minutes, right? And I just enjoyed my family again, and it filled me back up. And so if we're constantly aware of this dynamic, then we can make sure that we're not trying to pour into other people out of an empty glass. And if you understand where your pit stop is, then you'll always be able to find that next gear, and you'll be able to empty the tank and finally trying to make that run. So here's what happens though. A lot of times we're going through this process of trying to run as hard as we can. And I know, like, we get tired. And so as I've talked to individuals and I've said, look, when you're at your most tired, when you're at your most exhausted point, and I learned this back in athletics, I have got to develop this one more lap mentality. Okay. Now, the one more lap mentality is exactly what you would probably think of when you just says it. It's just, can I just go one more lap? If I'm trying to empty the tank, but I'm exhausted, you cannot think about the race as a whole anymore. Sometimes you've got to simplify it down to, can I just make one more lap? Because one thing I realize in athletics is the first thing that goes when I get tired. The first thing to go is technique. The first thing to go away is technique. And so if all of my efforts, right, and I'm exhausted, I'm trying to run as fast as I can, I'm trying to empty the tank, but I'm starting to forget about the fundamentals that got me to this point where I'm performing, right? You're in the middle of a project and you're like, oh, we can see it. You know, the deadline to get this project, this sales goal, this customer goal, whatever it might be, is next week. And you start to think about, are we going to accomplish this project or are we not? I want to challenge you that if you're going to have somebody, if you're going to have a one more lap mentality, it's simply about simplifying it down back to the fundamentals and looking at the small things, those small elements that it takes to actually run. Go back to these webinars, right? Go back to the fundamentals of how are your people wired, right? Go back to this webinar and that idea of, are you communicating what's at stake? Go back to understanding what corporate anxiety looks like. So in this final round, this next lap, you can simply go to your team and recognize who's kind of experiencing some of that corporate anxiety. And so in the PDF, there's all these stats. So I'm not going to give you this word wall yet, but I want to draw your attention just to this very first stat right there, because this is what I'm talking about. When we're talking about simplifying things down and going to this one more lap mentality, right? And understanding those small elements for that. I love this stat. According to a survey, visualizing and imagining your goals can make you twice as confident in achieving them. Only 31% of those who don't visualize feel confident about achieving their goals, as opposed to 59%, almost 60% of those who do visualize. And so that's the perfect stat to drive home what I'm talking about. Okay. You're almost there. You're getting overwhelmed by the size of your project and what you're doing. And so my question is, can you simplify that down instead of thinking about the race as a whole and the overall strategy? Can you come back down to this next lap? Can I just simply go back to visualizing and imagining what it would look like for us to accomplish this team goal in this project? Can you go back and visualize and imagine what your culture, what a winning culture looks like? Because that's how we're able to focus in on just that one more lap mentality. That's the technique. Those are the fundamentals that got you there to begin with. Okay. And that's what a one more lap mentality is all about. And so finally, right, I, I, I feel like I've been in this point the last 2 years of my life. I think that one of the things that I started to struggle with was this whole concept in our culture about, well, you never quit, right? And truth be told, like there's things that we quit all the time. I used to refinish bourbon barrels because my family's from Kentucky. I would find them and refinish them and sell them. It was just kind of a fun hobby I did until I got plenty of these bourbon barrels and we used them for decoration. I finally raised my hands and I'm like, I'm just done with this, right? And I quit that. Technically, I quit top fuel drag racing. I quit corporate recruiting. So this whole notion of like, never quit, never quit. No, there are some things that we kind of, turn the page on. And I started changing something in my mindset though 2 years ago, because it's not that you're just a quitter if you quit things. It's that our society has been plagued by really a bunch of people that won't finish. And so I kind of had this fresh commitment to myself to say, if I can just focus on becoming a finisher, if I can focus on finishing the tasks and the projects, then what that does, it takes the pressure off of the results, because 9 times out of 10, most people out there in the world, they don't even finish the projects that they set out on. Right? Think about the Fail Faster webinar. Think about that dip that people experience as soon as they come off of that, and they're all of a sudden, uninformed pessimism or uninformed optimism. They're excited, and then all of a sudden pessimism because they're going through failures and the lessons that they needed to know that they weren't expecting. And right there at that bottom of the dip, okay, is that valley of despair. And most people don't make it out of there, right? They don't finish the project. They don't finish the goal. And I just want to encourage you, if you're going to have a mindset of anything, a winning mindset is someone who is committed to finishing, right? I think that that's where a lot of confidence comes from. I saw a stat the other day, and this is, to me, this is what one of the best stats I can give you on becoming a finisher. And it said only 1% of people write down their goals. All right. And it says only 10% of people accomplish their goals without writing them down. 10%. 1 out of 10 people that do not write down their goals actually accomplish and achieve those goals. But that number jumps up. This is a Harvard business study, by the way. That number of successfully finishing and achieving that goal jumps up to 50, anywhere between 50 to 80% of people that write down their goals finish that goal and achieve that goal. 50 to 80%. And those are those little fundamentals those little elements that allow us to find our next gear in our careers and with our teams and in our cultures, right? It's simply writing down our goals. And so I want to challenge you with that. Have you written down this goal that your team has? Have you written down and visualized what you want your culture to look like? Because if you haven't written it down, you've got a 10% chance of making it happen, right? But if you do write it down, you've got a massive opportunity to go out there and get those goals and get the results that you've wanted. But I think that the chance of you finishing that project and finishing that goal goes up to almost 100%. Maybe you don't hit your goal. Maybe you miss the project goal and the results that you wanted. Maybe you technically don't win that goal that you set out to go and do. But if you can finish it, right, that's the best chance you've got to finally getting the goals and the achievements that and those trophies that we talk about, right? That ultimately that we're out here to try to accomplish. And so I love where this is going, because I wanted this whole webinar series to do just that. I want, whether you're a new hire in this company, whether you're a rising manager, whether you're a GM and you are over multiple leaders, if we can set out together with that same goal of simply finding our next gear, okay, you don't have to be Superman and Superwoman. You don't have to be all things to all people. The best leaders I've ever met in my life are the ones that just simply say, you know what, we're in third gear right now, but we've been in third gear for 5 years. It's time we simply go to fourth gear. The best leaders don't expect you to shift from third gear to seventh gear either. The best leaders understand that we just have to look at where we are now. We have to audit our process. We have to audit our team. We have to audit our personalities. We got to audit where we've got people. We have to look at everything. Never underestimate your ability to fill up someone else's glass, but understand that the value, the financial currency that we have is not always in dollars and cents. It's those ripple effects that we can all go out there and make. And you've got that ability today and this week to do that.